So we were talking about how important it is to notice distract, constant habit of being distracted. Now, one thing I need to tell you, many of you may think, oh, Rinpoche is giving teachings on Mahamudra or Mahasandhi. Absolutely, absolutely not. N-O-T. Okay, not. I am not. Really, because I have noticed so many, even the most seasoned so-called Vajrayana practitioners, especially Vajrayana practitioners, because Mahasandhi and Mahamudra is a Vajrayana stuff. They think conversations like what we had yesterday is a Mahamudra or Mahasandhi. It is not. The difference between that, what we have discussed yesterday, and the Mahasandhi or Mahamudra is like a firefly and the sun. And to understand that, not only you need to hear Mahamudra or Mahasandhi teachings, but you need to sort of upgrade your power of hearing. Yes, some of you may have received Mahasandhi or Mahamudra teachings. For those of you, everything what I said yesterday about not getting distracted, you will hear it in a Mahasandhi way. And that's, of course, that's the beauty of the Mahamudra and Mahasandhi. It says, Kundang tunjing kunne cheparpa. Mahasandhi or Mahamudra, especially Mahasandhi, is complementary to everything, yet it excels everything. Forget what we said yesterday, but even the one that we talked about day before, even that, admiration to the Buddha's teaching, just simply admiring the teachings of the Buddha, even that, a Mahasandhi people will hear it that way. There's an art of listening and hearing. That's a really difficult art. It's a difficult skill. You know what? Even that requires, actually not merit plays an important role. How you hear. In the sutra, I don't remember the name of the sutra, but there's an episode where Buddha coughed and 3 people heard it in a different way, and they each got something out of that. Hearing, the power of hearing, the way you listen, the way you hear, and way you interpret, of course, it's really something. But I just want to tell you that I didn't say anything to do with a Mahamudra or Mahasandhi. Remember? Hinamudra. This is what we are. We are here for Hinamudra. Also, I think there seems to be this strange misunderstanding that when you receive teachings from a Tibetan Lama, you are always receiving a Vajrayana teachings. No, you are not. You need to make sure, Tibetan Lamas, for instance, like from my experience, when I receive teachings from all my gurus, most of the time it's Mahayana teachings. There's a lot of Sharvakayana teachings, majority of them. For instance, in the Shedra down there, in the Shedra, out of 9 years, or I don't know however long they are studying, 11 years, out of 11 years, 10 years they study Mahayana. It's very important, So whatever comes from a Tibetan mouth doesn't mean it's a Tantric teaching. I want to tell you this because ordinary level of practicing Buddha Dharma, and the middling, right? Middling, intermediate is really good. Please think over. You should really settle on that one. If you have a itching for the higher one, and that Tantra, by all means do aspiration. As I said yesterday to a lady, aspiration to practice the Tantrayana. But if you have 1 hour, I would say maybe 50 minutes practice admiring or the middling one, and then 10 minutes maybe aspiration to practice the Tantrayana. I think this is really, really good for seasoned practitioner, not seasoned practitioner, for the survival of the Buddha Dharma, for the survival of Sharvakayana, for survival of Mahayana, survival of Vajrayana. I think it is really important. India is in a very peculiar situation. It's kind of a very strange, peculiar situation. But the West, the way the teachings got introduced to the West, also, what I'm saying is, when it got transported to China, the Buddha Dharma, China or Tibet or Japan, there were a lot of careful. It's a bit like, king was involved. Like Tang Taizong of China, he was involved. So when the king was involved, there's some sort of for instance, like the Tibetans, they even choose something called se mi midun, meaning it's like almost like test. Se means testing. Because he was a king, he can just do that. Okay, you, 7 of you. I want you to take refuge, and I want you to take a vow and see what you do. Like trying to test whether the Tibetans are good enough for this. They've done that. And all those these 7 people, they become brilliant. They become like amazing. So what I'm saying is there was this really, really good planning, sort of step by step. So I think it really helped. I think China also, I don't know so much about history of Chinese Buddhism, but a little bit that I read, the patron is so important, isn't it? Whereas in the West, and it's very sweet, the way the arrival of Buddha Dharma in the West was very sweet and very romantic, and it's so beautiful in one way. Beatles, marijuana, John, the poet, what's his name? Ginsberg. I don't know, Jack Kerouac. It's all haphazard, tantric sex, yoga, Vietnam War, really important. Disillusionment of, I don't know, some people got disillusioned probably with a promise that was long made. When did the Renaissance started? 1400? Yeah. I think the Renaissance and the what? Romantic? Yeah, so probably there was too much promises that the Renaissance and the Romantics period they made, or too much assumptions and too much expectations and too much hope, which gets a little bit crushed and dented in the 50s and 60s. So it's quite beautiful. And then there's also other stuff happening. Transcendental meditation, so on and so. Beatles, I think I mentioned. And then stupid Buddhist pride, we do not convert. Sort of very stupid. Because in this process, we don't really, when there is this kind of, interest, we don't really give, okay, so you do this, and then this, and this. There's no system. So things that should have kept quiet, the Tibetans just didn't manage to keep. I mean, long before Google or Wikipedia, photos like Kala Chakra, Chakra Sambhara is all there in the bookshop. The Tibetans are never good in keeping secrets anyway. Like in Judaism, I think there's a practice called Zoya. Zoya? Is it Zoya? Zoya? Probably, maybe I should not mention this, but they have, Kabbalah, right? Kabbalah. And then there's something called Zoya or something. That's like, they still have it, but they keep it so quiet. It's like really, really done properly. So this is what happened, I think. And there's so much house cleaning to do now, and it's kind of difficult. Individually, it is still possible. Individually, tantric practice and study is still possible between one and one. You can still have a tantric master who says something most, like, I don't know, obnoxious, like, okay, from tomorrow, you should never tell people that there's a Wednesday. Then that's your practice. Doesn't mean that, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows there's a Wednesday, but it doesn't matter. Stuff like this, you can do this. But as an institute, as a Sangha, there's a lot of house cleaning. So, aspiration is good, but need to really watch out with this one. India, as I was saying, is kind of in a very strange situation now. Because somehow Buddhism is coming back to, not so much, but still in the hearts and mind of a younger generation. Now it's coming from a little bit from the, Tibetan, a little bit from the Westerner, a little bit from, Japan. It's all good, yeah, why not? And then India is marinated and deeply inside, so many other cultures, like, Vedic culture, that's already there. But the Indians have these genes to understand non-duality quite more comfortably than anyone else, actually. Because they just live in this kind of culture that whatever is good today is bad tomorrow, and the next day it's good again. Things like this. So, yes, what I wanted to say was, what we have discussed is nothing to do with the Mahamudra, Mahasandhi. Please, as soon as a Lama teaches us, don't dwell on the past, don't dwell on the future, be in the present, immediately people think we are teaching Vipassana. I mean, Mahasandhi or Mahamudra. No, never. There's not even a single line in the whole Buddha's teaching where Buddha said, dwell on the past. Not a single line where Buddha said, dwell in the future. That doesn't make that teaching Mahasandhi or Mahamudra. There's a big difference. Lots of, really, really important difference. even the nuances, taming mind, training mind, lojong. How many words, how many times you have heard the word like lojong, mind training? Abiding, trying to abide the mind, such as shamatha. And then there's expressions like knowing the mind, recognizing the mind, introducing the nature of the mind. And then at times many times we have been told, oh, the mind is the most precious. To the mind I prostrate. Like Saraha, the most precious. Other times we have, that this mind, oh, the troublemaker, everything, like thinks this, thinks that, leads you to this. This mind is the most, it's like, at times we condemn this mind. You hear these nuances are all important, really, really important. But within this middling, or, the common path and the middling path, I really emphasize you to, dwell on this as much, because it has a much less gray area. As I always say, it's like this. When we talk about path, we always talk about solution and the antidote. Big gap between solution and the problem is a less gray area. Path is more clear. There's very clear distinctions of what you should do and what you should not do. But then a path that is more sophisticated, and the most sophisticated, like Tantra, gap is very, very narrow. Especially in Tantra, solution and the problem has no difference. That kind of path is so confusing. Too many gray area. It's unconceivable. Please notice if you are distracted for a few minutes. Okay? But now, if you want to do a little bit more, quite a lot more, then we go to Jebu Chembu Gilam. Sort of. How do you translate that one, the third one? Intimate superior path. Yeah, all these words are not so okay. Superior, a superior person's path. Basically, we are talking about Mahayana. Maha, grand, vast, infinite. Now we are going in a more, I don't know, we are now this is getting more complicated. The reason why it's superior, just few, out of many, if I cite few, grander view, superior view. Just as an example, in the intermediate path, the view is something like selflessness of the person, like notion of I inherently does not exist. So that's the ultimate view. But when you reach to the superior path, then not just that. inherently non-existence of everything, including the samsara and the nirvana, including the liberation. So that's just one example. So I think we discussed this yesterday, like 4 seals. We add the 4th seal. Just as an example. So the view is much bigger. And therefore, motivation is much, much bigger. Benefiting all sentient beings. And when we say benefiting, not just giving food or drinks, but actually thinking of the enlightenment and awakening state of all sentient beings, even on the relative level. Because of the grand view. And because of the grand view, also much, much more, much grander method. Things that are considered sacrilegious, non-virtuous, obstacles, so on and so forth, in the other sort of intermediate or common path, in this superior path, if it is benefiting to develop your wisdom, compassion to sentient beings, and especially if it is enlightening sentient beings, there's not a single thing that you cannot apply. I mean, except wrong view, covetousness, and harmful mind. You can basically apply anything as a path, as a skillful means. Another way to define superior path is what we call three liberation. Which is the ground. When we talk about a ground, when we talk about path, we always talk about path dweller, one who is walking on the path, and the path itself, and the beginning, where you start the journey and the end of the journey, right? So when we talk about that, there is this base. In the Mahayana, in the superior path, they do not assert any kind of truly existing base. And this is so difficult to chew. Maybe you can understand intellectually, but it's really difficult. Because, you are suffering. You have emotions. You want to get rid of it. You want to get better. You want to improve. All of that. But Mahayana talks this is quite a difficult, vast subject. Basically, the teachings on the grand shunyata, mahashunyata. And then lam tsenma meba. The path itself in the superior path is free of characteristic. Among many other things, that what it means. There is no okay. For instance, generosity, act of generosity. In the superior path, the act of generosity has to be completed by knowing that there is no act of generosity, there's nothing to give, there's no receiver, so on and so forth. So the path is always free from characteristic. I'm just throwing all these terms, jargons. I think it's kind of important. Even you may not have full comprehension. These are some of the Mahayana or the superior path's character. You need to make note of this. Again, there is one can see more and more the downfall of not understanding these three: liberation. Really, if you look at it, if you contemplate about yourself, why are you practicing Dharma? All of us, including me. At best, we are this person who only sees nearby. Really, that's it. At best. Most of the time, I think we are on that first one, admirer of Buddhism. That's already good, really. That's already really good. Don't, get depressed thinking that, this is not, it's not practical. It's not, productive to think like this. Because we just, we are, maybe you and me, most of us, we are admirer of the Buddha and Buddha's teaching, and that's really good. And then maybe we have taken some vow, which sometimes we break. But then we feel guilty, which is also good. That's about it. By the time you reach to this, ground is emptiness, path is characteristic less, and then what? Result is beyond aspiration. What is that? Why are we here? Basically, what the Mahayana people are saying is, you cannot long for enlightenment because it's not longable. Then immediately we think, why are we here then? What the hell we are doing here? If it's not longable, what are we doing here? Of course, we are here because we think. Okay, this is a typical Mahayana expression. We are here because we think we are suffering. We think. We project. We have a projection of suffering, pain, anxiety. It's only a projection, but it's painful, very painful. Now, do you want to dwell in there? Then you're already there. No need to work so hard. But if you want to get out of that, and if you want the superior path, this is it. So what do? So why are we here? Okay, I guess, it's not longable. So what do? We try to not long the things that are longable. That we usually keep on longing, such as, all the worldly dharmas. Remember I told you, the result is elimination. So we long for elimination. We don't long for something. Mahayana characteristic, basically. This is a Mahayana characteristic. Have aspiration to become a Mahayana follower. But keep in mind, these days, there is no interest in spiritual path. For spiritual path, there's a lot of doubt. I don't know why the modern people think like this. Modern people have more suspicion towards the spiritual path than any other system that they dwell. Even though all the systems that modern people are dwelling and believing and investing have failed them miserably again and again and again, but they reserve the suspicion more towards the spiritual path because it's sort of an easy target, I guess, easy to blame. And also because all the sort of worldly respected and elite will join you and support you, your suspicion. And if there is some sort of a spiritual interest these days, it's also very materialistic. I'm very suspicious about ethics. I'm very suspicious with things like mindfulness. I'm very sorry, but I'm very suspicious about stuff like secular ethics. I'm very suspicious about mindfulness. I don't know how much of materialism is there. Think in the context of what we talked past few days. Or think in the context of what I've just told you in the Mahayana context. If you think about that, I don't know. Mindfulness, ethics, all of this are just another spiritual materialism. This is something basically, what do you call it? Within the, we are still talking within the zone of nearby, this box. Okay, before the sun gets too hot, I'm going to lead you through some practice of recognizing the distraction, but this time I'm going to guide you. It might help, might give you some ideas so that you can take it home. Okay, first, look at things and just look. No need to have a special posture. That's it, good enough. Let's take a break. Okay, now let's just hear. Oh, by the way, I'm not making this up again. I have to tell you this because many people think, people do plagiarize these things and put it into some sort of a nicely packaged whatever, and then, people think, that's a really good instruction. These are all in the Mahayana and the Tantric texts. What I'm quoting, what I've got it from here is advice by Niguma, Telopa's sister. So long time ago, what, 6th century? No, Telopa is what? 11? Is it? before Shahjahan, I think, right? Hear, listen. Actually, hear, not listen. Two. Okay, let's do this time with just seeing your eyes. Seeing and hearing. A little bit more difficult, but just simply hearing and seeing. Okay, when you do that, for the beginners, most of us, most of the beginners will always end up searching for a sound or searching for a vision. But that's okay. Okay, let's take a break again. Okay, let's do sensation, feeling. Simply feel, no judgment. Okay, let's take a break again. Okay, this time we will do more, formalized, more, what do you call it, with a form, sitting straight, but also have a little discipline of not coughing, not scratching. Okay, we will this time we do 8 minutes, a little bit long, but maybe this will give you an idea. Okay, we are ready? Okay, let's start. Okay. Now, immediately, with this as a reference, I want to talk about the superior path, the difference between the superior path and the intermediate path. Okay? Keep this experience, what you just had, in your as a reference. Now, this is what the okay. Before that, the admirer. What do? They say, "Whoa, that's a cool stuff." You know, sitting like this and watching. I can see why this actually is good, but they never do it. You understand? They never do it. They just keep on thinking, this is a really good stuff. And they even talk to their friends. There's something like this, which is really good. And they keep on buying shamatha books, which they never read. It's really good. Okay? This, you understand? Intermediate people, this is what they do. They do this, and then they keep on recognizing the distraction. You understand? Because they know that distractions are going to entangle you. One distraction, you get engrossed, and then this distraction gives birth, breeds many distractions. Are like rabbits. Like within few seconds, it will be like 10, 20, 50. You understand? Endless. So then the intermediate people will keep on watching, and really wish to, sorry, those animal lovers, sterilize the original sort of source of the rabbit. You understand? And because they have seen the downfall of these distractions. You understand? This is about the intermediate. Now the superior, let's say we've just done 8 minutes. Let's say the superior person, what will he do? He or she do? Superior person will do this. He will do this like 1 minute. And then distraction. And then you see that distractions are a problem. It really entangles you. It really takes you deeper and deeper into trouble. The superior persons, this is just one example, so don't think that this is all. One example of the superior person's attitude is, instead of doing 8 minutes of this, 1 minute he will do this, the 7 minutes he is thinking, this is why all these people are suffering. This is why my beloved people are getting entangled and getting caught up. And this is why they are crying. This is why they are screaming. This is why. How can I help them? 7 minutes of that. They prefer doing that than really becoming so narcissist by 8 minutes of just watching distractions. Did you understand now? This is the difference between the superior beings. So actually, if you want to follow the superior path, you are really not really meditating for yourself. The 7 minutes, if that also, they're busy thinking about other people. How can I help these guys? This is the motivation difference. This part, scientists, secular ethic people, they will not understand this. Mindfulness people, people from this app, they will think, what is this? This is a religious stuff. It's a religious goody stuff, wishy-washy stuff. But If you don't have that, you have no compassion. This is what I meant by this three liberation that I was beginning to talk earlier. Is really vast. This is one example. Okay, let's just do another, noticing the distractions. No postures, just like that. I will let you ask questions, don't worry. A few more about superior practitioner. Okay, that's good. Superior practitioners should also, they do everything for others, actually. Even having a cup of tea, they do it for others. As pathetic it may sound, to have a really nicely brewed, nicely arranged afternoon English Darjeeling twining, is it twining, whatever, tea, you do it for the others. I'm serious. You think, okay, I think I'll go to afternoon tea. I think I'll go for a high tea because I really need to be cheered up a bit because I have so much thing to do. I'm supposed to enlighten all these birds and these insects, and I'm a bit sort of off today, and I feel very low, and I feel like I can't do it. So I'm going to Peninsula, like a coffee shop or something like this, and I'm going to dress myself up. I'm going to actually choose a silverish colored lipstick or something like this. You understand? Like, so that I can, make myself a little bit confident. Really, I'm serious. And this actually gets done more in really, really superior people, Tantra. They do it much, much more. In every level, on the action level. Your whole existence, breathing in, breathing out, you do it for the benefit of others. Whether your mind is settling or not, whether your mind is abiding or not, whether you are recognizing the distractions for yourself, who cares? This is what they think. I don't care whether I recognize my distractions for myself, but I have to do it for others. Okay, the question is, what's the benefit? Oh, big benefit. So big. We are talking about the difference between a, panwala like me and Praveen, who has very little investment, almost none, right? So we freak out if we can't sell 2 pan. We think that that's it. Our capital is also being sort of questioned. If you do big business, millions, billions, planning, and if you have a really strong, believable strategy, convincing strategy, you have no qualms about borrowing money. And if along the way, if you lose hundreds and thousands, you don't get swayed or discouraged, because you have a lot of things to do. I mean, you have a big plan, big vision. Really, Bodhichitta is the supreme, the superior, the most supreme business management. It is. It is the most important leadership training. You will lead. When you think about others genuinely, sooner or later you become the leader, not necessarily boss, right? Boss. But you become a leader because you care, you are concerned. And just to, I'm not going to talk so much about the superior because, this is for lazy people, isn't it? This time is more for lazy. I forgot the title now. Bodhichitta is the ingredient, the main ingredient of the superior path. Bodhichitta means the wish to enlighten sentient beings. But also, never to forget, bodhicitta is also the enlightened mind itself, meaning is all, the wisdom aspect of the bodhicitta should never be omitted. So, relative bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta are equally important. If you lose the ultimate bodhicitta, the relative bodhicitta is just a dogma. Okay, I will let you ask some questions.
Rinpoche, yesterday when you were answering beer, you mentioned the spontaneous arising.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I totally kind of forgot what we were talking about. What was it? Do you remember? Some spontaneous arising, Veer? What did you ask yesterday? Something to do with a spontaneous physical action, right? Body.
Yes, there were things we could do with the body that would sort of help us practice without using too much mind.
Yeah. Is there anything that we can do by body without thinking too much with our mind? Theoretically, maybe not so much, because if there's no mind, the body doesn't do much. But metaphorically, things like sitting straight, isolating yourself, your body, and gesture, I guess, can be a help. Okay?
May I have
Wait.
may I have a question?
Yeah.
So the superior being watches distractions for others. He drinks tea for others. He keeps coming into samsara lifetime after lifetime saying, I will help other sentient beings. But when you come into samsara, can you just be observing distractions, whether it's for yourself or others, and not get your hands dirty and do things to work in samsara, whether it's political action, social action, and so on? The moment you try to do that, I mean, I'm talking of my years of experience in this dharma field, all my colleagues become very superior to me.
And
And
then?
say, oh, this is all in the relative conventional sense, you know. All this politics is marked by emptiness, besides being a dirty game after all. So my thing is,
Okay.
isn't it not being superior, but just having a superiority complex? I am above all this. Then how the hell are you going to help the beings in samsara if you don't get involved in samsaric activity? Especially where you have to teach other people. You want to teach the dharma, but you are not bothered that children are being brainwashed with all sorts of anti-dharmic thoughts. But you
Right.
get into the field of education, you are in the middle of politics.
Right.
Then how can you avoid politics and say, I'm a superior
Is this the
being?
residual bit
I'm just
of last night's,
whatever.
Okay.
No. But but this has been sort of haunting me because I was involved in all these
Okay,
activities.
so the main question is, can one be watching the not watching the distraction for the sake of others and still not get stained by the distractions for
And is
oneself?
that enough?
What?
Is that enough, or should we be actually physically doing more?
Physically doing more to what? To make them not distract, or see, I'm talking more on, remember I was saying this is just one example, an example of motivation. Because bodhicitta, relative bodhicitta, after all, is something to do with a motivation practice. So no matter what you do it for the others. If you have that, I don't think the superiority complex should come here. Is there?
What I mean is, if I try to do that, or if I try to get other people organized to do something like that, then that is seen as itself being a distraction. This is not.
How?
This is
How?
not
Can you
dharma.
explain that one?
Precisely the argument used, I myself feel it's a wrong argument, but the argument used is, this is all arising out of causes and conditions. If somebody is an oppressor, some people are being oppressed, if there is a caste system, this is all coming out of causes and conditions. So we should understand that. You don't fight against the caste system. There is no need to,
Oh, no. You can do whatever. You can do both. You can actually do both. Keep quiet or not keep quiet. Both.
I think Bodhisattva has to speak up at least.
At times.
Yes, using skillful means at the right time,
Oh,
but
yeah,
has
yeah,
to
of
speak up.
course. Yeah, sure.
So
At
then you
time-
agree with me.
I think you're cornering me a bit
No,
here.
I'm not. I want you to help me to corner those people who refuse to get involved.
No, because I still need to talk with that man. So
He's
Yeah.
hiding behind his hat. He wants a mic, I think.
okay. 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 Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
I think this is really good this time.
I haven't heard your question yet. Do you need to think?
No, I have thought.
Okay.
It's, in benefit of others, I ask you questions.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in benefit of Mahayana practitioners and Tao Tai Chi practitioners.
Okay.
I suggest more spiritual practice or method to practice. That is, the combination of Vajrayana and Tai Chi. How about that?
Sure.
So 2 years ago in Shanghai, I asked you, is there any method in the Vajrayana?
Why combine? No need to combine. Do it separate. Much better. Better not combine. Otherwise, it will look like a Mexican food served in Los Angeles.
But this is a modern world, modern time. So as a Chinese, like me, growing up in China but lived in the West, come to India, I practice, I speak two other languages. I practice yoga, and which didn't satisfy me. And I come to the Vajrayana. I I haven't found a method. So till you teach me narrow six yoga or something, I don't have a method to.
Are you talking about you are saying that this is related to what these two are?
Yes,
So you are talking
so-
about a body exercise.
Yes, with
Oh yeah. Yeah, there is
Mind.
many. There's many.
So you say the Buddhists or in the Vajrayana, you don't have a method.
You know what? I would say 99.99 Vajrayana methods are not used. Do you know why? Because
Yeah.
again, in the Vajrayana, a few methods are basically hijacking all the other methods, such as chanting mantra, meditation. Oh, this meditation always hijacks a lot of other things. But many of these are also difficult. I mean, for instance, like 3 years retreat. That's another method. How about 3 years of wandering? That's a very, very, very difficult one. Nobody can do it. And it's going to be criminal anyway to do it, because we always need an ID.
But
Otherwise, you will end up in a prison.
But Tai Chi is more popular and
No, you are talking about another thing. Yeah. We can use this. Are you talking about a skillful means?
no. 2 years
I'm
ago in
confused.
Shanghai, already said in Taoism they have this teaching and
Yes.
with the physical practice of Tai Chi, and in Hinduism, in yoga, they have
Yeah.
also the similar teaching like in Buddhism, but they have the body part practice like yoga, the stretching.
Yeah.
But in Buddhism, we don't have.
Yes,
and
yes,
this
there
is what I
is.
miss.
But I'm saying there is. There's so much. Actually, that one, probably the Tibetans have still managed to keep it quite quiet. But you wait another year, they will come out. They have. It's just that it's never, here. It's just that most of this tantric, what you call, okay, I will tell you why. Actually, I know why. You know why, for instance, 6 yogas of the Niguma is not practiced? Because that yoga makes your belly very big. I'm serious. That's why. Because of the breathing exercise, really. You look at this lineage, all the Mahasiddhas, they have this big belly, no? Like this big belly. But a very special kind of belly, by the way. And who wants big belly? Okay, sure. Okay. Like this man, I've been suggesting him to do it, but 6-pack is what he wants. But he's, okay.
Rinpoche, could you please explain, in the context of what you've been teaching us the last few days, the difference between the Buddhism, what is labeled as Indian Buddhism, and the other Indian wisdom traditions? They have this concept of momentariness, kshanika, and which is the Buddhist idea, and then they have this idea of a laya, which is like a continual, and the way you've been explaining and the distraction, and one of the characteristics you said earlier in the teaching was this confusion of the...
Yeah, that is easy. All this what we have been using, especially coming from Indian wisdom, they have a very, very similar, it's basically same. But what differentiates is, as I always say, either 3 seal or the 4 seal. That will always be the differentiating factor.
So,
In fact, we don't even have to go to the Indian wisdom. Even the newly founded mindfulness people's technique, of course, they got it from this Indian wisdom. They just don't never give Indians the credit. These thoughts, these technique, if it is within the 4 seal or 3 seal, no problem. Then that is a Buddhist.
so many people who are trying to help people understand what Buddhism is are continually asked, what distinguishes Buddhism between the other, say, Shaivism or non-dual Vedanta, and
Oh, okay.
because there's a lot of confusion out there.
Okay.
And a lot of mixing.
That one is, you are asking a very big questions, which Atisha Dipamkar a long time ago made a statement when he was in Tibet. That's like what, how many years ago? Like how many, 1,000 years ago? Saying that there's a very, very, even back then, there was nobody who can differentiate between the so-called Hinduism and Buddhism. So you are now, asking me a very difficult question, but I contemplate this, and I think this, and I'm sure there may be Advaita scholars here, practitioners here, or not only that, Kashmiri Shaivism. But one thing I want to know, whether they have Madhyamika. This will make a big difference, I think, Madhyamika. And relative Bodhichitta. That's a big one, I think. If there is a relative Bodhichitta, and if there is Madhyamika's way of analysis, basically what I'm saying, in nutshell, Tantric, because you are talking about Tantra, right, basically, isn't it? Tantric Buddhism, the Buddhist Tantra and the Hindu Tantra, let's call it Hindu Tantra, maybe the big difference is Buddhist Tantra is basically, Buddhist Tantra is marinated with Mahayana. So if Kashmiri Shaivism or whatever, Advaita, do they have this Mahayana equivalent? You got it? You understand? I think that may be a really big one. But there is a lot of scholars here who can really make, and already can you give him the mic or you don't want?
No, he mentioned a non-duality as being a characteristic of the various systems in some of these. So
non-duality is not necessarily an uncommon thing.
Exactly, but I'm saying there is a little distinction, I feel. For instance, I was reciting those Sufi poems that day.
Right.
Now, Sufism also talks about non-duality, but that non-duality
but
is
Sufism is Buddhism.
But
I have a proof for that.
There is a lot of commonality, but Rinpoche, the non-duality of Sufism is the non-duality of self and God. There is no denial of a creator, but you don't see the creator as separate from yourself.
Right.
Whereas when we say non-duality, we are not talking about creator at all. We are talking about non-duality between all phenomena, between us and the rest of the universe, the interconnectedness, the fact that all are marked by emptiness. That is the non-duality. So I think that is a big difference in non-duality.
Okay, can you give the mic to that Australian? Okay.
But
how about that?
God is also a phenomena.
What is phenomena?
God, he was saying that the non-duality is different.
But he is saying that there is difference.
Sure, there's a difference, but what I'm saying is people confuse or conflate that difference. So they need to have...
It's really difficult. That's a very difficult. You have to stay with that mastered for a long time, I think. Especially Indian wisdom is amazing. Indian wisdom, Jainism. I mean, you are not even talking about Jainism. You have all being very romantic with Kashmiri Shaivism in India. Oh, Jainism is wow. And he was also contemporary to Buddha. You know, Mahavira, he was there, he was up there. For me, if I'm forced not to become Buddhist and if I have to choose the next religion, I would not even blink. Jain, right away. Absolutely. Okay, Sudeep is there. He will have to have something to say now. Okay. Okay, here. Okay, there's a lady there.
我来自中国，我是带孩子来这里的。我有2个问题，我自己很受苦，就是当我意念佛陀的时候，我会泪流满面，也会升起菩提心。但是呢，就是因为时间是有限的，我学不了那么多，可能每一个大德的课我会尽量的去听，然后我的加行可能就会断断续续。还有我行的时候，有的时候也会有一些烦恼。所以，对于我们这种在佛教当中，所谓的或者是刚刚起步的这样的佛弟子来讲，我们怎么能够就是能够卸除那个懒惰或者所谓的散乱，在佛教里面的散乱，这是我的一个受苦。谁帮我翻译一下
Okay.
So her question is, she's a beginner. She has limited time, and she tried to listen to different masters' teachings. She's trying to do non-dual, but still time is limited as a beginner. So her question is how to get rid of the laziness and distraction, because that's his main suffering when practicing Dharma.
I think we've been talking about that whole 2 days. Just admire the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. If you want to do a little bit more, remember I suggested how about not kill human beings. That's kind of easy and you can really collect a lot of merit. Because you will not do it anyway. Right? I hope not. Okay.
我还有一个问题。
Okay.
I have 2 observations to make. One, the first, I'm seeking your permission to make the observation. That's, as you mentioned, the Indian habit of getting acquainted with non-duality. A simple suggestion I have, that it is so well woven into our being, just you go to any slum, you may find one poet, one artist who transcends the slum conditions. And all of it is, you can find a nuclear scientist who gets up in the morning, does his puja, puts a mark on his forehead, and then goes and splits the atom in the lab. These are the expressions of non-duality, and we are absolutely comfortable with it, which we also call as paradox. The third thing is that if we really wanted to understand Indian spirit and how the non-duality operates in Indian conditions, please read a wonderful epic called Mahabharata, where all the epic is nothing but Mahabharata, nothing but non-duality, because there is everything which is great is also small. Everything good is good, which is also bad.
Yes.
All vice, all virtue, absolutely both are contradictory apparently, but they all exist together. That's one expression of non-duality. That's there. My question now is that would it be, now I have the superior path I find, that would it be right to say that when I go to the kitchen area and stand in the queue to have food, I fill up my plate as much as I can. And then if there is one egg to take, I take 2 eggs because I like, or this particular thing I like. So while taking this, or when I'm coming to the teaching, I want to grab the most important place from where I can see Rinpoche or at least have an eye contact and all. So would it be right to say that the superior path in what you just said would be to, while I'm taking my food, just to think of the fact that there will be other people also behind me if it finishes. So just to keep it in mind, or when I'm coming here, maybe I'll give away my best seat.
Yes, yes, of course. But we are not following the superior path. We are lazy people, remember? Yeah.
So that would be the superior
This is
path.
why, isn't this how we sort of define that this time is going to be lesser people, common people, not superior. But one thing before we stop, there is this question. Zen lineage, there is a concept called kaiwu. Kaiwu. I think, some people seem to think whether, yes, it has a different meaning to complete liberation, but this is actually nothing exclusive to Zen. This is generally Buddhism, especially Mahayana Buddhism. I think there's many beautiful expression. Mig duldan tawa sing chik tene demba thong sing kachi joro kansa sanji jema thadu demba thong song la sing kachi. There's so many stories and expressions like that. That the moment you see the Buddha, somebody saw the truth, or moment he or she heard saw something like, I don't know, a sound of a bird, like the migduldan tal. Mig is I, dul is veil or a dust, tal means eliminate, meaning you see things without veil, without interpretation, nakedly. There's so many expressions like that. I'm sure Zen Buddhism, which is actually one of very, very important Mahayana teachings, must have come from there. Going back to our friends here, please think about what I've told you, especially those who are a philosophy student. I think the Indian Tantric tradition, Kashmiri Shaivism or whatever, I don't know, there's 2 things, whether they have the Mahayana equivalent, one, and therefore, more specifically, do they have the whole complete analytical method of Madhyamika. By the way, it does not mean that when the Tibetan Lamas teach, they teach properly. Many times the Tibetan Lamas make mistakes by teaching Tantra just raw. This is why in the Tantra, Tantric students must learn, of course, first of all, the Sharvakayana they have to have. Sharvakayana of not harming others. Mahayana, the Bodhichitta, and then deconstruct all the view with the analysis of Madhyamika or Pramana also, and the Prajana Paramita. And then you really can understand, with that as a base, the Vajrayana. I think that will make a difference. So it's a bit like this. I think it seems small, but it's a really big difference, I think. Don't you think? I think it's quite a big difference. Okay, I don't think we have much time for question. One thing I want to just say, there have been a lot of requests to see me within this 2-3 days, because everybody's also came just for 2-3 days and everybody's going. It's almost impossible since I'm, as you can clearly see and so obvious, not a sublime being. if I am, it's so easy. I would manifest for each of you one. But that is not the situation. I don't have the miracle power to make extra hours. But those who are staying beyond today, from tomorrow, the things are more relaxed. So I'm just telling those who wants to see me, please keep in touch with whoever, I don't know. And today, when we come back, we will do the refuge, and that's going to be very short. So those who wants to take refuge, I will do the ceremony here. I thought of doing it there, but it would become too complicated. The intention of this year's meeting is really to, touch the base, really visit our foundation. And I hope at least some of you got some food for thoughts. Hearing and contemplation is really important. Hearing and contemplation involves critical thinking. It's absolutely important. But also realize critical thinking has no limit. Until our duality exhausts, there will always be some sort of a critical thinking. And then our critical thinking also changes. Just, I don't know, it changes. And when it changes with the most stupid reason, most unexpected reason. You may be a very fascist, right-wing, conservative, person, but I don't know, too much onion in beer momo might turn you into I'm serious, a very left liberal person. These things happens. So you can't really rely on critical thinking also completely. I don't mean that you need to blindly follow a person. But I just want to say, belief is all we could do as a human being. As a devotee, as a nuclear scientist, belief is the only thing that human beings know how to do. That's all you have. Yes, to the certain extent, to question that belief is important. But if you want to achieve something, if you want to decipher something, if you want to shrug off something, if you want to sort of go beyond this zone, this box, this nearby thing, but if you want to see a little bit further, then you have to also have the courage to jump. Anyway, you won't lose much in one way, even though the modern people seems to everybody's becoming like princess and the pea. It's just so, like the only phenomena that I usually observe where modern people don't seem to really care about this thing is this football match. That they don't seem to really think so much. Otherwise, wow, the paddings and the armors that we wear. The world is going crazy. So crazy. Don't know what to say. I've been, this morning I saw somebody's beard. I was about to say something complimentary and I held it. So I better not. I don't know where it will lead. So I'm also putting a lot of padding, and it is making things so tense and stressful and not genuine, and I don't know. I think some courage to jump. You won't lose much. Maybe a few armpit hair. Not so much. Anyway, as a samsaric being, you suffer anyway. So might as well sometimes jump, jump. And that jump, when I say jump, what I mean is hearing, contemplation, but the jump is meditation. Meditation is jumping. Meditate, because you are really jumping. Wow, you could be making millions to, money, lot of money, while you are sitting doing nothing. But you are jumping. So you should consider doing this. So refuge ceremony around 4, a short one.
Those who don't want to take refuge can also come and observe.
Those who don't want to take refuge but want to observe, you are very welcome. It's not that exciting, but please come. Okay, thank you.